Before you begin, make sure you know these terms.
Hello and thanks for watching. I'm Mr. Kennedy, and I'd like to welcome you to the intro video for Chapter 29 of Stern's World Civilization. Let's get moving. Chapter 29 is called Industrialization and Imperialism. First, industrialization. That's the change in the mode of production that was caused by the Industrial Revolution. This chapter outlines some of the economic and political advantages European states gained from that Industrial Revolution. You might want to find out some more about it before reading this chapter. Imperialism refers to the creation of overseas empires by industrial states, like the British Empire. This chapter covers how European empires developed and the social and economic systems that dominated those empires. While Stearns doesn't do this, we can break that very large topic of imperialism into two sections. First, investment imperialism, in which European countries gradually gained colonial power as they industrialized and then heavily invested in their colonies. The second group would be called extraction imperialism, where colonies were ruthlessly exploited for raw materials and human labor. Investment imperialism. The two examples of this that Stearns covers are the Dutch colonization of Java and the British conquest of India. In both cases, the Europeans began as weaker trading partners on the outskirts of powerful and populous kingdoms, like the Mughal Empire in India. As industrialization gave Europeans access to better technology, especially improved firearms, they slowly began to expand their influence, usually through alliances with local princes. Once they gained power, investment imperialists attempted to develop their colonies along European lines, usually by building infrastructure like railroads and factories. Social systems in investment imperial locations were distinctive. In British India, the colonizers were satisfied to take over the top section of the Indian social systems, letting the rest of it continue as before. British and upper-class Indians also interacted during this period, and miscegenation, or intermarriage, in both India and Java was not uncommon. Another example of social interaction was higher education, which led high-class natives in old imperial colonies like Latin America, Java, India, Senegal, and Algeria to positions of leadership and responsibility within the colonial government and economy, and the development of an educated middle class in those colonies. That pattern of investment and education did not last long. A sign of change were the nabobs, incompetent, corrupt, and selfish British officials in India. While colonizers had always been focused on enriching themselves, the nabobs did so without regard to methods or consequences. They were only going to be in India for a short time, so who cared what happened after that? With the switch to extraction imperialism, most colonizers seemed to adopt the nabob's attitude of take all you can and give nothing back. In the second half of the 19th century, Europeans established extraction colonies throughout colonized areas of Africa, Southeast Asia, and the Pacific. Using the power of industrial technology, they were able to quickly dominate these areas, despite sometimes fierce resistance, like the story of Insan Dwana that begins the chapter. Overly confident British forces, armed with the latest military technology, were soundly defeated by well-organized and experienced Zulu soldiers wielding spears and leather shields. Investment imperialism involved social and cultural conflict, but extraction imperialism was based on new pseudoscience that claimed white racial superiority, often supported by ideas like social Darwinism. It's not a surprise that all of these scientists were white. Racial prejudice had existed before, but this was the beginning of what we call racism today. Socially, those developments meant less interaction between colonizers and local people, including anti-miscegenation laws, and a shift away from providing higher education to developing workers. Extraction colonies were poorer, their people did not have access to education, and overall living conditions were lower. But even in investment colonies, like India, pseudoscience and racism worsened conditions. By the beginning of the 20th century, most of the world was controlled by industrialized European nations, and the lives of conquered peoples who lived in those colonies was often terrible, sadly ironic considering the Enlightenment values Europeans claimed to present. Before I go, I'd like to emphasize two things. First, it's easy to view imperialism as a strong, smart, rich nations taking over helpless poor ones. That is a dangerous oversimplification. If you read Stearns carefully, he makes it clear that while Europeans often won eventually, the people they tried to conquer fought back, often with success, and then adapted to new social and economic realities. In short, those people demonstrated that imperialists did not have a monopoly on agency. Second, some sections of Stearns are clearly biased. See if you can identify those sections, and don't feel like you have to agree just because it's written in a textbook. That's it for Chapter 29. Thanks for watching. Take a break and then check out Chapter 30, The Consolidation of Latin America, where we'll learn how some former colonies gained political independence, and what happened after that.